Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties again. We have a few new people this time. So for those who weren't here, my name's Darci Tierney and I'm one of the participation coordinators at 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗹𝗹 Victoria. So this is part 2 of our 3-part webinar series. And again, we'll have the chat box going on the right-hand side there, so you can continue popping in all your comments there. And we've also got the question box down the bottom. So there'll be question time at the end, and you can just pop them down there all throughout the webinar, and then we'll have a look through them as we go. So I'll hand you over to Kathy Tessier from Active Approach again. Thanks.
Thanks, Darci. Hi, everyone. So great that so many people have registered again. Thank you so much. And today I'm joined by the lovely Josh Thornton as well. So we are super excited to have such a superstar bowler in our midst as well. And Josh will be joining us a little bit later after our little recap. But I'd like to start this webinar by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we hold these webinars, and you come to us from these webinars, and pay my respect to the elders, both past, present and emerging. So hopefully you got lots of great food for thought last time, and we were really pleased with the response to the webinars as well. So please keep your questions coming, and we can do our best to or endeavour to certainly to answer them. But really we are on the journey together, aren't we? So this is the second of the third, as Darci said, and of course when you put your action plan in at the end, you do go into the draw to win a fantastic set of 𝗪𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗪 bowls. I'm not sure if I can go into that draw as well, but I would be very keen to get a nice set of 𝗪𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗪 bowls, that's for sure. So let's Darci, can I get you, we'll just have to do a quick recap before we actually listen to the star of the show, Josh. Darci, can I get you to put the PowerPoint up a little bit, please? So I'm looking at, it was very really overwhelmed with happiness, I guess, that at least one bowls club has been getting into that, doing the homework and sending their thoughts and I guess action items in already, which is just fabulous. So what we're going to do is just go through, certainly we did have a little audit. Darci, the PowerPoint seems to be stuck a little bit. So from last week you had an audit in terms of what's working at your club and what's not, and again we'll send out that audit if you want to make some a little bit of just I guess some notes, giving you a bit of food for thought. And as I said, the most important thing is that we will be asking you to submit an action plan, which is really simple. To 𝗪𝗲𝗶𝗹𝗪 Vic after August 21, the last webinar, to actually win those tailors, that set of bowls. Now the club action plan that we're asking you to submit is super mega easy, and of course you can be guided and helped by your regional bowls managers, and I'd like to actually welcome the regional bowls managers to this webinar. They're silently in the background, but welcome Paul, John and James, the real stars of the show as well, in terms of being able to help clubs with the actions from these 3 seminars, which is the most important thing. So it's all good to hear what we say and to have a bit of food for thought, but the most important thing is what you actually do from here. So your action plan really is just issues at your club, what are some possible ideas, and what are some action points. All right, so Darci, that's fantastic. Can I have the next PowerPoint, please? So just recapping what we went over last week, which I guess is the food for thought for this session, is that look, these are amazingly difficult times, and in our lifetime we've never seen anything like this. And if you're in Melbourne Metro like I am, and we are completely locked down, and each day we see these numbers rise, incredibly worrying and stressful times. So it is a great time, though, to rethink. Maybe this could be an opportunity for your club to be able to reassess and really have a look at how you can make things a bit more sustainable. So it's good thinking time, and I know there's not much thinking time for volunteers because they're so overwhelmed all the time. So Darci, can I have the next PowerPoint, please? So we did go through some of the things from Play by the Rules website which is really, really fantastic. Again, I would definitely recommend that you jump onto that. Some of the stuff we'll be talking about in terms of the how of inclusion today is all contained within that website. It's one of the best websites in terms of a resource. And we unbelievably will be having the manager of the Play by the Rules website next week for us to join us. Next webinar to join us. So obviously stuff like embedding core values. So what does your club stand for? Does it reflect the community? Are there lots of different choices and pathways for the bowlers in your club, or is it just certainly one particular way? Is it Darci, wrong PowerPoint. We're after the 7 things. So stay connected with your members. Consider new membership models. So consider, are you just, are there some social members? Are there too many social members? Are there not enough social members? What does your membership look like? Updating your policies and codes, really important. And again, all that stuff is like literally half an hour job to do because all those templates exist already. So just contacting BV or your regional bowls manager in terms of that is the thing to do. Plan for sustainability. So again, this is about thinking about who are in your community that could be attracted to your club. I love bowls clubs. So many great things going on. Who can you actually attract in terms of people that you haven't had a go at? You haven't attracted so far. So with that, I might actually we've done a little recap. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought, and you're writing some things down in terms of some stuff that you already do great at your club, or things that you maybe want to recap. But I definitely do want to hand over now to our guest speaker, and someone that I'm incredibly excited to hear from. So Josh Thornton is not new to all you guys out in bowls land. He's a bit of a legend, a great guy to work with too. So obviously the gold medalist from the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Most importantly, he was the first player to be successful in the national championships as well as the para championships. So note the pathways in terms of Josh's incredible bowls ability. He's formerly a regional bowls manager too, so he knows everything from elite down to club stuff. And finally, unbelievably, again, just in his spare time, he has a young child. He's currently finishing his Masters in Sports Management. So I think that there's nothing that this man can do. And I am so excited to be hearing from Josh. Thanks for joining us, Josh.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Darci. And welcome to everybody who's on this morning. I'm very honoured and proud to be a part of this particular webinar series. Inclusion and club participation and club membership is quite something I'm passionate about. I think I'll start off with how I got into the sport, because I think it's quite important and relevant to everything that's going on in terms of the webinar series. I grew up in a country town, little place called 𝗪𝗃𝗯𝗃. Coro's on the other side of the river. And Coro at the time was quite famous when I first started playing bowls as being the biggest bowls club in Australia, if not in the Southern Hemisphere, So bowls was quite prominent in my town, but up until the age of 13, I never even considered it or even thought twice about playing the sport. But I was born with a congenital birth defect. For those who have met me, they would probably know that I've got 3 fingers on my right hand, 2 fingers on my left hand. I have no left elbow. But probably more the serious issues for me growing up as a kid was that my right leg had a lot of ailments, I guess, or, differences to most kids. When I was 11, my right leg was 7 centimetres shorter than my left leg, So in terms of being a sports nut like I was and trying to go out and play those physical sports, things were starting to get hard for me. I spent 5 months out of action when I was 11 having that surgery, and even though I wanted to still play football and basketball and tennis and cricket like all the other kids, they were starting to take their toll on me. And then I had another major surgery again at 13 because of the way my leg was and the way my foot was. And it was at that time I had to start considering other sports. I did try golf first. And being a right-hander and no left elbow, I had no backswing, so no elevation. I was terrible at golf. And me being the competitive nut that I was and wanting to win at everything I play, golf wasn't meant to be for me. So my grandfather played. He was a current club champion of the RSL. And I thought, why not? And I remember not long after that, sitting in a school assembly, they did an announcement about there's school tryouts for lawn bowls. anybody's welcome to come along. You know, I thought, oh, I've seen it. I'll put a couple of bowls down and I'll probably make that side, no problems. I've always been a confident guy, and as it turns out, I was probably too confident at that stage. I didn't make the school side, but the passion was there for me, and I knew it was a sport that I could play for the rest of my life. And that's the great thing about our sport. Regardless of your age, regardless of your background, height, weight, your impairments, and all the rest of it, it is the most inclusive sport out there. And it's something that I've always preached ever since that day I started it on. So I was lucky enough to be approached by a family friend who was a club coach. And he rang my dad up and said, look, I want to coach Josh. I'll work with him individually. There's a couple of things we need to agree on, though, that he's going to commit, which obviously I was very keen to do because I wanted to do something I was good at. And the second thing, and I think this is relevant for all you guys out there at Clubland who might be looking at going down this space, is that Josh has to listen to me and me only initially. And I think that's quite important because it can be quite overwhelming for a new bowler, regardless of whether you've got a disability or not, or you're from a different background. But by having that trust and that relationship with our coach, it helped build the rapport between me and him. It helped me learn at a pace that was suitable between me and him. David, that coach, was a great communicator. He spoke to me about what I could and couldn't do. And when I first started, I was trying to use a size 0, but I was hanging on to the bowl all wrong. And we worked through all these things, and we come up with a delivery to this day reasonably unique to myself, and that I can hang on to the bowl with only having 3 fingers. Obviously, I don't hang on to a bowl like other people do, but I had this delivery where the bowl sort of goes behind my back to a point, but it's never sort of down, you know, and the fact that I can't hang on to it properly means the bowl is never all the weight going down. And so developed that delivery in that first year of bowls. And I guess the rest is history in terms of my progress. You know, 3 years later, I was going pretty well and I become Victorian junior singles champion, you know, and, you know, I got to play for my state and go to Australian junior championships. And, you know, my disability didn't stop me from achieving the things I wanted to achieve, you know. So it's interesting enough that at that stage, I knew nothing about para sports and Australian disability championships with lawn bowls. And so I was just playing open bowls and, you know, as I said, reasonably successful at a junior age. I probably didn't perform as well as I'd like at an open level once I got out of the juniors. But I was out there playing, lucky enough to, you know, represent my region and winning group championships and all that sort of stuff. It probably wasn't until a friend I knew who was from New South Wales had gone to the 2002 Com Games to Manchester. And he was a bit like me in terms of he actually represented New South Wales juniors. And he said, why aren't you playing para bowls or disability lawn bowls? I said, don't know nothing about it. And he goes, you should, because, you know, you'd easily make our side if it goes to the next Com Games. As it turns out, the para component of lawn bowls wasn't involved in the next 2 Com Games. So there was no para component at Melbourne and no para component at Delhi, you know. But I sort of stayed in touch with him. And then I remember around 2012, there was an announcement that when the next Com Games was going to be in Glasgow, that there was going to be a para component. And up until that point, I'd never really still considered it. I was probably a little proud. And I thought, well, I don't need to go down that space. But the reality sunk in for me was that why be proud when you had the chance to go out and represent your country at a Commonwealth Games? And so I swallowed my pride and decided to start entering these events. And I trialled for those particular Com Games. And as it turns out, I failed miserably at the very first trial. Those who are aware that Northern Hemisphere greens are quite different to Australian greens, and I never coped with the pace of the green that they had prepared here in Australia. But it didn't deter me. It spurred me on more than anything. And the great thing I knew was that the next Com Games was going to be in the Gold Coast, and that sort of set the agenda for me for the next 4 or 5 years. And I remember going back home where I was living at that stage, living in Shepparton, working for Bowls Australia at the time. I remember writing my goals on a big piece of cardboard and putting them on the wall. And I had all these little mini goals that I wanted to achieve. And so I'm forth my journey to go into the Commonwealth Games at the Gold Coast, and it was funny enough, along that journey of trying to reach that goal, my open level bowls started hitting its straps as well too. And, I was going to the Australian Open, and, the first Australian Open in the Gold Coast in Broadbeach was the first time they allowed it to be open, and they had a pairs event as well. And I was lucky enough to win both the singles and pairs events at that first Australian Open up in the Gold Coast. And then I started, doing pretty well in the open events. And so much so, come 2017, I'd already been picked to play for Australia and some Paratrans Tasmans and stuff like that. And I was involved in the selection process for the Com Games. That I won the Australian Open pairs with my good mate, Barry Lester. And, that to me, outside of representing Australia at the Com Games and winning a gold medal, that still to this day is the thing I'm proudest of, because it proves that if you have a different background, you've got a different disability, or, you're different to everybody else, that, you go out, work hard, you can still achieve the things that everybody else can, So it's something I look fondly on, and those obviously know that, my introduction, that I got to go to the Com Games. I played with two amazing guys, and Tony Burnell and Kenny Hansen, and we're lucky enough to go and win gold. And it's still the greatest sporting moment of my life. Getting to my time as a regional bowls manager, I joined Bowls Australia as a regional bowls manager in 2011. I was based out at Dubbo for the first 18 months, and then I moved to Northeast Victoria, where I'm originally from. So one of the things I stress and emphasize with clubs when I was out there meeting with them in my capacity as a regional bowls manager, that there's a lot of different networks and a lot of people out there that they're missing in terms of participation and membership. Disability is one of them, but you've got your cultural and linguistically diverse groups. You've got people of different religions, and bowling clubs out there have got so many different organisations in their communities that they could potentially tap into. That one, they'll start building some participation through those particular networks, but they might also get some membership out of it too. One of my proudest probably accomplishments as a regional bowls manager was the 𝗪𝗲𝗃 Bowls Club. They built a relationship with 𝗪𝗃 Disability Agency. And the guys from 𝗪𝗃, they had some real serious disabilities. They weren't going to be able to get on the bowls green, stand up and be able to let it go like most bowlers can. But 𝗪𝗲𝗃 used some initiative. They got these long poly pipes, cut some holes into it, and they allowed the guys to be able to put the bowl into the pipes and start playing bowls. And I think that's a great win for a club like 𝗪𝗲𝗃. They created some participation opportunities for that particular group. But the flow-on effect from that is people from that particular organisation who work there come and do barefoot bowls parties. People from those particular disability agencies come and join the club as members and decide to start taking the game upon. Family members of those people who are part of that disability group come along and start playing the sport as well too. So just by tapping into a particular group that may not necessarily join your club as a full member, but they're there from a participation perspective, still opens doors and other avenues, So I'm a big believer that don't pigeonhole people in terms of what they look like or what they might be. You got to obviously some good chances there to pick up some new people coming to your club.
Fantastic, Josh. That is sensational. Now, I'm sure you've got lots and lots of questions for Josh, so please put them down the bottom of put them in your chat box. Josh, that was a great example of 𝗪𝗲𝗃 Bowls Club there. I just love that. What would you, if you were going to give some tips and hints in terms of your own experience, like in terms of what you loved in terms of going down to a bowls club, but also what you saw, generally what would they be in terms of, bowls clubs moving on from here?
Oh, look, I think communication is key. I always stress that, because one of the things that, and we'll use disability as the example in this space, is that there's an assumption you can't do certain things. And I think the worst thing you can do as a coach, as a person who's a recruitment officer, don't assume they can't do something. If you open those lines of communication and speak to the person as an individual, regardless of what their background is, you'll soon discover that they can do most things and you won't offend them. There's always a chance by assuming something and not opening those lines of communication, you might offend them. I mean, I'm a very pig-headed and determined sort of guy. I probably get frustrated if someone wants to do something for me without even me being asked first, you know, or even letting me the chance to do it. As I said, there's not a lot of things I can't do in life, just, you know, despite the way I've been born. And so I can't stress enough the communication component of it all.
Yeah, and I always think it's quite simple, isn't it? Like you don't have to overcomplicate things or think you're going to get it wrong. You just have to ask people what they need, and not assume. And that doesn't just go for people with disabilities, does it? But, you know, I was just thinking of the example of, you know, if you had some newly arrived people with a Muslim background in your area and you wanted to include them, automatically assuming that the women may want to cover up or wear a headdress or whatever is not the assumption, or that they don't eat pork or whatever. It's really, you know, I've never met two people from the same background that are actually the same. So it makes it easy, doesn't it, when you just go, right, well, what do you need? What do you want? And it's it is nice and simple. I loved also the Eagle Hawk example of just going and getting some big pipe and being able to make ramps with that as well. Yeah, perfect. Darci, we might just quickly recap on some of those really valuable things that Josh said. Darci, would you mind putting up a bit of a PowerPoint too? So what we're going to do in the next, so we're going to the change it one. What we're going to do in the next just few minutes before we get your questions is just kind of recap stuff, but also talk about if your club is, you know, and we do see inclusion as being the way to come sustainably out of the COVID-19 era, if there is ever an end to this era. But certainly to be successful in this era is definitely, it's definitely around being inclusive. So we're going to just quickly recap on the how, and then we'd love to hear your questions after that. For obviously you've got Josh in front of you, so great resource to be able to ask your questions. So hopefully you can see on the in terms of how, now this stuff is all included in the coaching course as well, or certainly there's lots of other resources we can get you. But obviously, in terms of including new people in your club, coaches and the attitudes of coaches are absolutely and completely essential. And you know, being the phys ed teacher that I am, it really does, it's really blindingly simple, and all great coaches and teachers modify and adapt for all anyway. So just look at what a person can do and then go from there. But some of the things that you might want to think about, or you might want to encourage your coaches to think about if they're not that great at being able to come up with some changes, this little acronym of change it here. So obviously, you know, if things aren't working, it's quite easy to change your coaching style. So going to peer coaching using, you know, the written word as well as the spoken word. You know, there's all sorts of ways you can actually change your coaching style. Certainly, you know, in a training situation, how you score or what your measure of success is, and certainly doing game sense type of session where you're introducing zones and risk and time, all that kind of stuff is great. Certainly changing the area again. So again, thinking about, you know, how you train for, or maybe even not even training, just having a nice a sort of mini competition. The area that people have to play in or have to score in is really, really important. Number of players, so obviously not so applicable as much in bowls, but certainly, you know, some people are better playing with a team. Some people are better playing, you know, just by themselves. Certainly the biggest one, I think, and the most important one is the use of different kinds of equipment. And Josh, that example you used of the going to Bunnings and getting a bit of poly pipe is a great example, and it's certainly one that I've seen used again and again and again. So other examples are, you know, if someone has a vision impairment, just putting some bright material on other people so that they can see them. But, you know, that doesn't have to be a lot of money. Bowler's arm, the bowler's arm is a classic example of a fabulous bit of equipment that, you know, everyone can use as well. So we've got things like ramps. We've got things like bigger signs. We've got things like using, you know, different languages as well. Lots of different ways that we can change the equipment or the way that we have what we have around the club. And obviously the it or the time is, again, some people, again, like short, sharp training sessions. Some people like longer. You might want to give some people some information before the training session, but it really is just around asking them what they need and what's going to be successful for them. And again, if you want some more information on how your coaches can adapt to suit all individual needs, it's in the BV and BA coaching stuff, and certainly your bowls, regional bowls managers will be able to help you with that. Darci, can I get into the next one, if that's okay, please? So we're just going to quickly recap on a few things that Josh talked about. So some of the stuff, inclusion is just simply best practice. So whether we're talking about people with disabilities, different races, different religions, different orientation, so gender and sexual orientation, whatever, it's not really about that. It's about the fact that they're an individual and they're a person, and just everyone has different needs. So it's just as simple as asking them what they want. Thinking that the different organisations or different people that you bring to your club can't pay or can't do this or whatever is not helpful. So just asking them what they want. And if there's any consideration. The next slide, young Darci, please. Really, I know there's a lot of information about, that you need to know about the disability, for instance, or there's the certain race or religion or background or whatever. I guess what I would say, certainly in my lots and lots of years in terms of teaching kids or teaching, coaching people with disability, is that really knowledge about the individual is key. It doesn't matter you ask about medical considerations, what you need to know, and then just get on with what they can do and where they want to go. And I guess the one thing that I loved about Josh's, another point that I got out of Josh's last little bit was that providing choice is really essential. So not assuming that just because, for instance, a bowler has a disability that they want to play in para competitions, they might want to play in both, or they might want to play in a para competition and train with other able-bodied bowlers. But it's just about providing pathways and choice. They may not want to be competitive, they might want to be social, or they may not want to be social but want to be ultra competitive. It's just really as simple as asking them. Just quickly looking at in terms of you guys and the how and the next steps from here. Darci, can we have the next slide, please? So some of the things that, again, Josh talked about, I think our slide might have frozen. Hopefully it'll catch up with us. Is I guess looking around at your community and thinking about who you might want to target. So is it that there is, for instance, thanks, Darci, there's a particular migrant group in your area? Is there particularly a newly arrived group in your area? Is there an adult day centre of people with disabilities in your area? Is there a scope centre, as that was a great example? So thinking about who you might want to include that's not already at your club. Obviously making sure that your club is welcoming, so everyone's happy with this too. So there might be some unwanted, might be some fears or some, people that are not confident. So just talking through whatever the issues are is the best way. Certainly considering support and training for coaches if needed. And again, the BV and BA coaching material where you're looking at adapting and modifying is great. But again, you can also, Josh is a resource, the regional bowls managers are resources as well. I guess, you talked about, Josh, partnering with local organisations that are specific to that type of population. It's a kind of no-brainer. Often local councils will be able to facilitate that as well. So if you haven't got a good relationship with your local council, and I do recognise some are better than others, it might be the time to actually ring up the Sport and Rec department or whatever the relevant department is and say, look, we want to partner, we want to include more people, different people, how do we do it? Really, really important to not feel overwhelmed by this. So starting small, thinking big, just, sometimes it's as easy as looking at the members that you have got and seeing if anyone that they know, family member, a friend, a neighbour, wants to play bowls, but doesn't think that they can actually, they may feel that there's barriers to it. And I guess I think the most important thing is, and we often do this, we're so busy at clubs, and I myself am involved in a local club, so I know what it's like. Really important to celebrate and communicate the small wins. So you know what? Tell everyone. I always say, get a T-shirt or get a T-shirt made. But it is really important. And Darci would love to hear your stories, your great successes in terms of the little things that your club does in terms of including a more diverse range of people in bowls. All right, so let's have a little look. I love your oh, look at this, lovely, lots of questions. Gary Cantwell, you are an absolute champion in terms of some of the stuff that you are asking. Do you want to, Josh, you want to have a go at answering that next question? We might go to questions first before we look at assistance and wrap up, I think. Do you want to ask? You can see Josh.
Yeah, so Gary's question was, I find it difficult to get club management to step outside the perceived norm. It might be too much hard work. Look, that is relevant for probably all bowling clubs, regardless of whether we're talking about inclusion or not. Sometimes things are too hard, but I think you've got a number of resources out there that you can obviously lean on in terms of this space. Your regional bowls manager, and as I said, there's a few of the guys on here this morning listening. They are amazing in what they can do. I know when I was in that role, if someone wanted to go down a certain space, we're there to do some of the grunt work for clubs, So if they wanted to go down a space of getting into disability groups, I'd offer to jump in the car with them as an RBM and take them to a couple of different disability groups and creating some meetings. A really untapped resource are regional sports assemblies, and every area has a regional sports assembly. And I built a lot of disability programs based on my regional sports assembly. They usually got an inclusion officer or someone in that space, and they're obviously looking to put people with disability into sport, So building a relationship with your local regional sports assembly will potentially open up the doors into that space. In terms of the club management thing, Gary, look, it might be that you might have to run your own little subcommittee. Now, obviously, with the approval or the AOK of your board management, but I don't reckon they would begrudge anyone willing to put their hand up to go down this space if it's going to bring new people to the club. And if you build your own little people of volunteers who are really keen to get into this space, I'm sure they'd be all for it, And then if you obviously have success, the board of management will jump on board based on that, I reckon, for sure. So that might mean, as I said, identifying a few people who have the same passion that you do, to go and try and pursue some of these programs.
Fantastic. And speaking of regional bowls managers, the lovely 𝗪𝗲𝗶 is, I think it's probably a similar question, Josh, but is there anything else you want to add in terms of his question?
I think, and if you can obviously get your hands on them, good news stories, or we used to call them good news stories back in the day when I worked for Bowls Australia, but it's those lighthouse clubs who've done something good in this space. And I know as a regional bowls manager, and Paul can agree, we at times have to send in a story about a club that's done something really good, in whether it was Jack Attack or a disability group or a junior bowls program, and highlighting their success. And then it becomes real to a bowling club. If they know where that club is or have heard of that town, it becomes a lot more real than us going in and saying, oh, look, let's do disability groups because you're going to get new people. That's not real, I guess, in terms of you just saying it like that. But if you can relate it to a real bowls club that's had success in those space, it's definitely going to help the situation for sure.
Yeah, fabulous. Hey, Darci, can we just have speaking, because I know you've mentioned there, Josh, a couple of different places you can go or resources to go to. So we just have a quick recap of that because I'm mindful of the time. Can I have that PowerPoint up, please? So obviously we've talked heaps about the next steps, and certainly, again, going back to your action plan is a great idea because it's like really just popping down a couple of simple ideas that might help you. Certainly, again, I would definitely say the regional bowls managers are incredible. Really, the other sports don't have the resources that you guys do. So, take a time, pick up the phone and give them a call and just talk through where you think you might want to start or what you might want to do at your club as a result of these webinars. The lovely Darci down the bottom of the screen too is an absolute sensation in this space. And I have to say, shout out to Darci, who work with a lot of different sports over a lot of different states. And she's gold. She is gold. So definitely giving her a call or giving her an email is really important as well. Bowls do a great job in terms of coaching, their resources, and they're only going to get better as well. So please look at what you've got within your own sport in terms of being able to adapt and modify, particularly in terms of, you know, coaching. And finally, there are some disability sport organisations that are, you know, so blind bowls and the like, and we'll put a little list up that can be quite useful. And obviously, Josh has. I'm getting mixed up with my regional bowls managers and my guest speakers. Sorry there, Josh. Josh mentioned Scope and other organisations that you can, in the disability space, that you can give a bit of a call to too. So again, probably best to start with your regional bowls managers and map out a bit of a, you know, local little plan. Next, most importantly too, please remember, so next slide, Darci, that there are some grants available. So the Community Sport Goals for Vic Health is certainly one specific to females, but that may or may not be an issue at your club. Always a little bit difficult to apply for Vic Health funds. So definitely getting your expertise from the regional bowls managers or definitely people from BV is really important if your club wants to be able to access those funds. But the bottom one is quite a great one. So short-term survival package from the state government, really fabulous. I was talking to the Minister for Community Sport on Tuesday, and they are loads and loads and loads of clubs that are accessing that too. So this is definitely an area where there are some resources available. All right, so that brings us to the end of our webinar. It has flown again, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be doing this. And thank you so much to everyone for your absolute dedication in terms of just trying to make sure that bowls is much more broadly accepted within the community. So Josh, can I chuck it over to you to perhaps say the final words?
First of all, just thank you for everybody for having me involved this morning. Something I love talking about and being, and as I said, I'm passionate about. Like to think I'm a bit of an inclusion advocate out there, you know. So obviously, if you're getting stuck, speak to your regional bowls manager, speak to Darci and Bowls Vic. Maybe Darci, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'll be happy to pass on my contact details, and I'd be happy to email, ring, whatever you want to do. But you've got some good resources out there. For those clubs that feel like they are a little bit stubborn and don't want to change, look, just work on it. I think you can get there eventually. It can take some time. It is a culture shock for some people, but if you're passionate about what you want to do, there's no doubt you can achieve anything you want. So,
absolutely. Darci, anything from you before you sign off?
Yes, I just want to say a quick thank you to Kathy and Josh for another fantastic session. And I'll send this PowerPoint out to everyone as well. If you signed up late and missed out on the PowerPoint from webinar 1, just send an email to us and I'll send it on to you. Thanks everyone for coming.
Terrific, and we'll see you on Friday, 21st of August at 10 a.m. Any other further questions in the chat box that we haven't answered, we'll get to them individually. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.